The National Executive Committee of the All Progressives Congress ended its emergency meeting the other day with a resolution to dissolve all state, zonal, and national structures of the party. The meeting also extended the tenure of the caretaker and extraordinary National Convention Planning Committee of the party, led by the governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Buni, by another 6 months. The meeting also expelled a former national vice chairman of the party in the South-South geopolitical zone, Helia, for instituting a suit against the party in contravention of its order to members to withdraw all court cases. For the significance of this development, we are now being joined from our Rise Abuja studio by Daniel Bwala, a lawyer and member of the All Progressives Congress. Daniel Bwala, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the morning show. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Abati.
Thank you. Well, very quickly, let's start with the issue that is on almost every front page in Nigerian newspapers this morning, which is the invitation to the president to come to the House of Representatives to address the issues of insecurity in the country. The papers are reporting that based on the counsel of the Attorney General of the Federation, the president is not likely to go to the House of Representatives. The Tundu and Rufai here are hoping against hope that the president will show up. What do you make of the invitation first? Does it have the force of strict enforcement? And secondly, the counsel by the Attorney General of the Federation, which the presidential villa seems to be relying on. And then do you also share the view that the president, if he doesn't go today, should still go there because this is an issue of urgent national importance?
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. And I think that Dr. Rufai is a man of hope, but I doubt if his hope will come to reality in this instance, and I will tell you in a minute or two. Couple of things. Maybe we have a trouble with the use of words as to whether the National Assembly summon the president or invite the president. The National Assembly can invite the president to address the country on State of the Union. It is common, and the Constitution is clear. He may elect to go, invite the president, because they are the true representative of the people. But the National Assembly cannot summon the president, because power of summon, as provided in the Constitution, is power to investigate, power to interrogate, and power to probe corruption, as you will see. And that is not within the powers of the National Assembly to do so. So if the House of Reps summon him, the answer is they do not have the legal or constitutional right to do that. But if it is inviting, then they have the constitutional right to invite the president in the spirit of esprit de corps to come and address Nigeria on matters of national security. And the point that the president is avoiding to go because he does not want to divulge national security matters, I think is a baseless argument, because the president is not in nursery school. Even people who are elementary, they know when to discuss privilege matters and when not to discuss privilege matters. And secondly, I do not think even in the spirit and letter of their invitation, if it is invitation, is of a nature that the president will come to the National Assembly to answer questions. Because even if you look at other climes like the US, when the president comes to speak on the State of the Union, it is just to address the country on the state of affairs in the country, and after which he takes a bow and go. So if the president avoiding to go is because of question, he doesn't even need to entertain question. He goes to address them. So maybe in the spirit of esprit de corps, what ought to have been done in order to avoid this friction would have been in one breath for the National Assembly to send questionnaires on areas of concern to them that they want the president to come and address the nation about, so that when he comes, he will incorporate everything into a speech, deliver and go. But if it is but they can summon any officer of the agent of the Federation, like the Chief of Defense Staff, National Security Advisor, or any other officer of the government of the Federation that manages any security architecture. That person can be summoned, that person can be interrogated, that person can be investigated for the purposes of accountability. That one is clear. Number two, because the president has given his word that I am coming, I think it is imperative that the president displays or demonstrates the honesty and integrity that everyone knows him, which is to say that I gave my word and I will go. Because if the president doesn't go and the excuse is because the Attorney General issued a declaration or legal opinion, it will give a very bad impression on the government, because the impression that will be sending to the masses is that when the president accepted to be there, was he not counseled? Was he not advised? That means there is improper advice on the part of the federal government. That's why the president can make a hasty decision, and upon second opinion, he changes his mind. That leads us to the second point as to whether it is within the purview of the Attorney General of the Federation to issue public policy or legal opinion in respect of this matter. Over a period of time in Nigeria, by convention, we have adopted certain principles that are very inimical and not good to the polity. The office of the Attorney General, as provided by Section 174 of the Constitution, is quite explicit. In matters of criminal law, he is to institute or to take over a criminal matter and continue to discontinue. In matters of administration, he is to represent the government of the Federation in international treaties, international agreement. He is not the Attorney General of the President. He must not be seen giving opinion or speaking on behalf of the President. To do that, it means we are politicizing the office of the Attorney General, because the way it is constructed from the constitutional standpoint, the office of the Attorney General can even investigate the president, even though he's an appointee of the president, but he can investigate the president or agency of the president. So I think here is a missing link. We either do not have in the villa the president's legal advisor or president's counselor or State House counsel, whose duty will be to speak on matters of law, legality, and executive decisions of the president in his capacity as the president of the Federal Republic, because liability can also lie on what he says. If you look at America, we already have Bill, but you will never see Bill Barr coming out to the media to defend actions that are directly personal to the president, President Trump. Rather, you will see people like Kellyanne Conway, who is the president's counselor, speaking to the rights of the president in respect of matters that he deals with other branches of government and or in his engagement with private citizens. So in terms of law procedure, I think going forward, the presidency should have a legal advisor to the president or a State House counsel that will speak on matters of law and decision of the president in his capacity as the president in his engagement with the National Assembly or the judiciary branch or with the masses, while the Attorney General will speak on matters of the sovereignty of the nation in its relationship with other nations of the world. So this, in a nutshell, is my view in respect of the matter. But going forward, I think that the president in the 8th Assembly, the 8th Assembly has been heavily criticized as non-cooperative, which was the reason why the government, the executive branch, was hostile in its responses to their demands. The 9th Assembly is largely seen, in fact, I don't know rightly or wrongly, as a rubber stamp because of their willingness to cooperate with the president. One good turns deserve another. If in one breath the National Assembly are demonstrating to the president their willingness to help him achieve his agenda, it will not out of place. It is not out of place for the National Assembly, if carefully couched, invited the president, for the president not to honor. Let me tell you one reason. It is a representative democracy. Every single member of the National Assembly represents a constituency. The constitution is, the democracy is built in such a way that I cannot stand from my village and start addressing the president or asking the president to address matters in relation to my constituency. And so for the president to respond to each and every citizen of the country, it will not go well. So we now sent representatives to form one branch of government, which is the legislative, vested with powers to checkmate the executive. And I think that the reason why the National Assembly, for the first time, in my view, they had a very bipartisan resolution to invite the president. It is on matters of national security. And I think that, in my personal opinion, the one and only reason why the president may evade to go to the National Assembly is because he does not want to answer this age-long question of why the service chiefs have not been sacked. I have not seen any cross-section of the country where anybody that I know is not calling for the replacement of the service chiefs. So that is the reason he does not want to address it. Probably he's not prepared to reject the security architecture. But if the president is prepared, he would have done so today and appeared the next day to address them on the State of the Union.
Well, thank you for making a lot of my points for me. I personally refuse to believe that the president will behave in such a dishonorable fashion as to accept an invitation and then renege. But we have some points of divergence. For me, the whole summons invitation thing is mischief, and nobody should indulge that. It was an invitation that was addressed to the president. It was not a summons. So if some mischievous people want to describe it as summons, the rest of us need to ignore that. And that notwithstanding, let's leave all these hubristic tendencies. Invitation, summons is neither here nor there. The president is accountable to the people. We need to normalize presidential accountability. Another point of divergence is when you said the presidents in America only turn up to give State of the Union addresses. That's incorrect, because even in 1862, Abraham Lincoln humbled himself such that he appeared even before just the committee, the Judiciary Committee of the House, not even the joint sessions. In more recent times, President George Bush he voluntarily appeared. He was actually summoned, and there was no back and forth. He decided to appear to address the Congress post-September 11th on national security. Earlier on, I cited President Obama, who appeared. He honored an invitation to appear to discuss the Affordable Health Care Act. He also appeared to talk about American labor issues. So there's a precedent. If we remove the hubris of our military, our post-military hangover that we have, where we think the president is God, His Excellency is not KBAC, he who cannot be questioned. That does not exist here. So he can be questioned. And I like your point about the questionnaire.
So let me clarify.
Do go ahead.
So let me, if you permit me, let me clarify the American context and the Nigerian. You cited the case of Abraham Lincoln. Since then, there have been 27 amendments in the U.S. which corrected some problems. Before the invasion of Iraq, after the 9/11, it was not a summon. President George Bush asked that he wants to come and address the Congress.
I said he voluntarily appeared. I used the word voluntary, yes.
Yeah, but I am saying that he requested to address them because he needed them to vote on money that he will use to execute the war. So if the president is looking for something, if you want to bring supplementary budget or anything, you can request to be there in the spirit of friendliness. But the point I want to clarify, my sister, is that the choice of words in our law practice, even comma, full stop, exclamation, can affect a decision of court. That is why you find decisions of Supreme Court will say the word shall is mandatory and leaves no discretion to the other person. It doesn't give room for you to say, I meant will,
my learned
now,
friend, I am also a lawyer. The House of Representatives
let me just clarify, you get it.
No, the media and other people have been mischievous by saying summons, and the Attorney General and other people are the ones who are introducing the mischief of calling it a summons. It was not called that by the House of Representatives.
So let me ask you a question. Have you seen the letter of the invitation? There was no letter.
The Speaker, unless we're going to ascribe, falsehoods to the Speaker, he went and approached the President. But we don't want to get into a back and forth. He approached the President gave his word, and I hope that he honors it. It will be most unfortunate if he doesn't. If I may move on, I wanted to ask you the practical implications of this dissolving of APC's party organs. What does that actually mean in practical terms? And does that offend Article 17 of the APC Constitution, which with regards to tenure?
The Constitution of APC is quite clear about the separation of powers to each organs and bodies of the party. Dissolution, which is like sacking and rejigging of any structure of the party, lies within the powers of convention as provided in Article 13. You will later see in Article 17. It is the convention that can ratify decision. It is the convention that can sack national officers. In other words, only the convention has the power to remove somebody that is democratically elected by their constituency. However, in that same constitution of the APC in Article 13, it also states with regards to the powers of the National Executive Committee that apart from the powers to vet activities of the NWC, powers to invite people and do some other issues, it also says that the National Executive Committee also carries out the functions of the National Convention between conventions. So here, that's the problem. It means that the Constitution is trying to avoid a situation where there will be a constitutional crisis in the party because one convention to another convention may give birth to a lot of problems. So the Constitution now says that NEC can carry out the full functions of the convention in between conventions. To me, that is where the problem is. Because it then means that the National Executive Committee, if they are executing the powers of the convention, they will do what the convention can do, which is to dissolve the structure of the party. And they did so in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. So the act of dissolution of the party, of the structures of the party, is legal and constitutional, having regard to the provisions of the party's constitution. The problem, however, is that if you look at Article 17, I think sub 3 or so, it states that no national officer of the party will hold executive post concurrently. It means that any member of the steering, extraordinary committee or the caretaker committee, as we call it in our party, if there is any officer of the party holding any executive position in government, can be president, vice president, minister, or any executive post in the government, it means that that executive officer is carrying out an act that in law can be construed as unconstitutional and unlawful because Article 17 sub 3 says shall. And I told you earlier on the powers of the word shall as was held by the Supreme Court in plethora of decisions. So, and I know that the chairman, the caretaker chairman of the party is a sitting governor and a member of NEC. So it remains to be seen, because that's my worry. If it is challenging the code of law, we're going to have a problem justifying whether or not we're in violation of Article 17, sub 3.
Okay. So 2 questions I want to bring in here.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I want to know more about Helia data and this back and forth and this wrangling. Yeah, I mean, the man is pressing and he's saying, I want to have a say in all of this. And the way it looks as to everybody is as if there's a stifling, the stifling of any voice of dissent. And you might call this cheeky, but please don't. I want to know why some of the meetings of a partisan political party are held in a very sacred chamber of the presidency. I want to know why.
Now, that is wrong to begin with, because the activities of the party as circumscribed in our constitution are to be conducted the business of the party, just like in company registration, resolution of the board, the venue of the meeting is as important as the resolution itself, right, in company law and practice. And so in political party processes, and the business of the activity, business of the party are conducted in party secretariat. It means that these National Executive Committee meetings that for the past few times have been held in Villa, it's wrong because it ought to be held in the National Secretariat, where the National Secretariat, in one breath, is not expansive enough to contain everyone. They are to rent any building available for rent. And so when they move from that locus to the building, they constitute the business of the party as though they are in the National Secretariat. The idea behind that is that the Villa is a seat of power, is a seat of governance, and whatever decision that is carried out in Villa should be a decision in the interest of the generality of the people. And so it is a matter of precedent. My fear now is that the precedent we are laying is going to be bad, because if tomorrow our party is not in power and another party comes to power and they begin to hold state dinner and NEC meeting and everything in the Villa, we are going to raise an eyebrow. And rightly so, because every facility and asset that is used in the Villa for the purposes of executing party activities, to me, is an act of corruption. Because if they are served drinks from the budget of the presidency for entertaining guests meant in the period of governance and not political party processes. And I don't think that we are buying drinks or water or whatever from outside to bring in it to Villa to hold the meetings there, or we are paying a rent for that purpose. However, there is an excuse for the president. The excuse is that since COVID-19, a lot of dynamics has changed. And so they would argue that the meeting was actually not held in the villa. The meeting was held online. It's just that few officers happen to be around the president, because whatever discussion is done, if it requires signing or certain execution, people around the president will have to do it. So if the president should move to the National Secretariat, for example, and then the vice president will probably move to another place, the Zoom meeting may not be concrete, may not be decisive. And that is why a few people were selected to be there, but largely the meeting was held online. And by the law of online transaction or so, there's this global law. In the internet realm, there is no jurisdictional bound. That's why Nigeria can sue, somebody in Nigeria can sue somebody in America if the act he's suing is constituted in the internet world. So in actual fact, they can argue that the meeting was not held in Villa.
Helia data. Can you make us understand what's happening to Mr. Helia data? Mr. Helia data, can you
5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
can you make us understand the case with Mr. Helia data?
Oh, Helia, okay, yeah. That was the fellow that was expelled from the party. Now, there are two issues regarding the fellow. The NEC has powers to expel him if the powers they're exercising is drawn from the powers of convention, because the convention can expel any member of the party, like I said in my earlier statement. But the constitution of the party is also clear as to the procedure for dealing with disciplinary matters, because you will see in that constitution it says, without prejudice to the right to fair hearing and other laws. In other words, the constitution of Nigeria that guarantees fair hearing is overriding the powers of the constitution of our party without prejudice. It means if that fellow can establish that he was expelled without giving fair hearing, then Shugaba versus University of Maiduguri will apply. It means that every act of the party of expelling him without giving him fair hearing is null and void and cannot stand the test of time.
Well, quickly.
And one more thing, the procedure in our party for dealing with dispute resolution is that if you are aggrieved, there is an appeal. In the case of elections, there is an appeal panel of even if it is primary. I've had the privilege to serve as secretary in both screening committee and primary committee. If you are dissatisfied with the decision, you then appeal to the appeal committee. If the appeal committee determines your decision not in your favor, you can then wait for the NWC to either ratify the decision of the appeal committee or not. If you have exhausted all this mechanism and you are still found wanting, by our law, by our constitution, you cannot go to court because your fair hearing was judiciously supplied to you with Coke and Fanta and everything. But if at any of this point you can establish that there was no fair hearing granted to you, or that the judgment preceded the hearing, then at that point, when you go to the court of law, the court will inquire as to whether or not the fair hearing of that individual was granted. And don't forget, when it comes to the matter of fair hearing, there is no statute in the country that can override the powers of the Constitution. So that is the issue there.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Daniel Bwala. But let me ask you, after that dissolution of the state executives of the party, PDP issued a statement saying that the APC has now become defunct and that the seats occupied by members of the APC across the country should be declared vacant. Is the PDP in a position to make that kind of demand? And then secondly, is this about the battle for the soul of the APC? Because there have been some speculations that this is about one faction of the party trying to grab control, and that this is politics against Oshiomhole and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the other hand. What's your reading?
So, a couple of things. Okay, one after the other. The first question, the first point I think you raised is in relation to PDP. Now, the law that we know presently that will give a political party the powers to approach the court and inquire on the activities of another political party is the Electoral Act. And the only period is during electioneering process. Any period other than that will render the other political party as a meddlesome interloper. So what PDP is saying or doing at the moment will be construed as busybody activities and not one that is provided by law. Now, coming to the substantive matter, it is only a member of APC that can approach the court and challenge the sanctity of the party having regard to the dissolution of members. And what he will challenge if he goes to the court is whether that act is legal or unlawful. Now, he can only establish that it is unlawful if he can succeed to demonstrate that the National Executive Committee lacks the locus to dissolve that. And I told you earlier that if they are acting on the powers conferred on them by the convention as provided in the Constitution, then that act is lawful, legal, and can stand the test of time. But if that party member approaches the court to say that this act was carried out while X was presiding as the national chairman, who also holds an executive position in government, then bam, there is a problem. Because then it will activate sub 3 of Article 17, whether or not the act of an officer who by the Constitution is invalidated from holding two posts concurrently can be said to be lawful, legal, or constitutional. So the person with the locus is the member of the party. Then another thing is, this I pray that our political party should not turn the party into what we call democratic dictatorship, where in one breath, just not long ago, the commander-in-chief president said nobody should be precluded from approaching the court if he feels aggrieved. And then in another breath, he says, if you go to court, we are going to expel you. I think the party will better manage it if they say that if after you exhaust all of your rights through the mechanism of the party and you choose to still go to court, then you will stand expelled from the party. But you cannot foreclose somebody's right to fair hearing and at the same time expel that person. I try to avoid the situation where we have problem going forward. Now, with regards to the 2023 battle, even the blind and deaf and dumb, they know that the activities in all political parties when election is coming, is not limited to APC, my party, is that there are certain interests in the party that will be jostling for power. You gain power when you have structure, and you cannot have structure if you don't have power to realign the structure. There are people who will argue that this dissolution of the executive is one way of hijacking the structure, because if you say in one breath you dissolve all the executive across all levels, but at the same time you appoint them in a caretaker capacity, somebody will argue and say, you have just succeeded in taking away their constitutional right, because that will give them legality and locus in the court, and you convert that right into privilege, so that if tomorrow they don't play ball, you can sack them and stand on the point that he who appoints can disappoint. So that's one argument of some people, and they will say it's a structural thing. But if you look at it from the holistic point of view, there are people in our party, and quite frankly so, who will make the case that there is need for us to know, because between 2019 and now, lots of people have left the party. Some have come into the party. They give you a case study of Dave Umahi, and with the prospect of more people from PDP coming, they will tell you there is need for us to update the membership of the party. It is there in the Constitution that every 6 months, the party should update its membership, and the update should be translated across the levels from the ward right to the national center. My only prayer is that in this exercise of updating and revalidation and whatever the nomenclature is, let the rights of people not be foreclosed. But you cannot stop anybody in a political party from scheming constitutionally or lawfully for a means to attaining his power, because the political process entirely is about interest.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel Bwala, for joining us and for shedding light on the politics of the APC and the dissolution of the state executives and various chapters. Thank you very much indeed.